This is the biggest thing ever. I call it the once in a species opportunity. It's not once in a lifetime. Cognitive labour, knowledge work, my background, law, banking, accounting, hedge fund manager, is going to zero. No doubt about it.
Wow. I mean, that's Piers Linney, best known as an investor on BBC's Dragon's Den. With over 25 years of experience spanning law, entrepreneurship, venture capital, and tech, Piers is the co-founder and executive chair of Implement AI. You could hypothesize a decade later, when those technologies have exponentially grown to be so good, we become the inefficiency in the model.
In 10 years' time, regulators won't want to talk to a human. They want to talk to an AI.
On being a dragon on Dragon's Den, and how is it like being in that hot seat?
Oh yeah, I was asked to be a dragon, but I wasn't that sure at the time. I was just busy, and I wasn't sure about being a celebrity.
There is so much going on in the world, and what you're focusing on these days around the world of AI and how it's evolving and how people can practically use.
If AI stopped today, all R&D just stopped. It'll probably take 4 years, maybe more, to embed that and integrate into all of our systems and business and society.
I think if you don't embrace this, then you'll probably be in trouble.
This wave is coming in. There's no doubt about it. So there's no point running away from it. Here's another one that people don't seem to grasp. The internet is going away.
Today's episode is brought to you by Studio Space, a leading on-demand marketing agency platform that enables marketers to browse and brief agencies, receive proposals, and start work all in the one place. It's kind of like having your own agency network at your fingertips, but without all the hassle, as they take care of literally everything, from contracting to invoicing and procurement to legal. So you get the very best talent working on your brands to help you grow. Do check out Studio Space today. Okay, over to the show. It's probably really relevant here today as we talk, because there is so much going on in the world, and what you're focusing on these days around the world of AI and how it's evolving and how people can practically use AI to their advantage is a really pertinent topic in this moment in time, and that's great that we're here to do this. So let's kick off. I mean, how's 2025 been for you?
Flat out. It's been hard work actually, but which is good news. So it's quite interesting. In December, I was looking at my diary, thinking, oh well, January you got a nice easy take off. We did a small financing, raised a bit of money in December, but then my diary just literally filled up. So it's been I've hardly slept. It's not a good thing. My ring has been telling me that I need more sleep. So it's really exciting. Yeah, I think last year. So we started to talk about the AI business a little bit in 2023 May. And the first year was kind of like more like productized consulting, talking about it and what is it? Is it going to kill humanity? All those kind of silly questions. Then 2024 was kind of, well, that's interesting. A lot of people kind of like wait and see. But I think 2025 people are realizing that you need to do something. Now, what that is might be just learning more. But my view is that you need to get onto the pitch and kick this ball around, because in this kind of exponentially changing world, I mean, I'm the mathematician, right? But it's quite hard to catch up on an exponential curve. And whether you look at like the politicians and the news and lots of businesses, and it's really hard to get your head around this. Everyone's still got this sort of linear approach to life and business and modeling and all their kind of plans for the future. And we humans, we just don't understand exponentials. We can't get our head around it at all. We've evolved in kind of a linear world where, the terrain and our landscape and our lives didn't really change much for millennia. And now I think in my children's lifetime, society, business, economics will change fundamentally. So it's how do you align yourself and make sure that you're kind of paddling into that wave, which is what we did, myself and Alok, the co-founder. We were like, right, this is the biggest thing ever. I call it the once in a species opportunity. It's not once in a lifetime. So how the hell do you paddle into this wave? And that's why, and we did.
I love that thought, and you doubling down on that out of sheer perhaps future vision, but also starting off very much like the way you're describing, right? It's kind of getting your hands dirty, like being curious yourself and working with these tools. I mean, you talk about the world of being sort of exponential in the exponential curve. I mean, could you elaborate a little bit more? I know you did a great summary of it in one of your recent YouTube videos about the exponential nature of this movement.
So I think it was Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. He used to explain exponential. People don't understand it, and like a dual geometric progression, right? The best way to understand it actually is probably COVID, sadly. So you hear about someone's got a cough in Wuhan, and within a couple of months, your kids can't go to school. How does that happen? And that's exponential growth, essentially. And Sam Altman said that if you're standing on an exponential curve, and this is the problem with policymakers, they're looking at the past and it's flat. It looks the same as always looked, going out into the horizon. When you look into the future, it's vertical. So wherever you are on the exponential curve, that's what it looks like. And we struggle to understand that. So if you look at, people say to me all the time in artificial intelligence, they say, well, that's clever, but it can't do this. You're like, well, just think about where it was 12 months ago and then 24 months ago, right? And then look at OpenAI and ChatGPT, look at Anthropic and Claude. Then there's been all this news recently about, DeepSeek, depending when you put this out. And that DeepSeek, that kind of news really, all it really is, and I think the CEO of Anthropic said this, that it's just a point on an exponential curve. So yeah, you're going to see costs come down, capability go up. And the next time it might be OpenAI or Anthropic or Google, who knows, where there's another point that makes DeepSeek look pretty mundane. And that's what's happening. And we can't get our head around that. So if AI, generative AI I'm talking about now, not kind of machine learning so much, if that stopped today, all R&D just stopped, it'll probably take 4 years, maybe more, to embed that and integrate into all of our systems and business and society. And even that will create fundamental change in particular industries. So the point is this, right? You can go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution. You probably haven't got time for the podcast on this one, but all these revolutions, the first, second, third Industrial Revolution, were really about augmenting humans with skills and machines and tools. It could be a steam engine, it could be a microcomputer, right? This is different. So this is intelligence. So we are commoditizing and productizing intelligence. So think of software as a service, right? The B2B SaaS market, starting with Salesforce and huge market with billions. The reason you pay per seat, frustratingly, is because a human operates it. So every seat you've got of your software, there's a human pressing buttons and pulling levers and transposing data. With AI and AI agents, that layer almost goes away. So what you have is agents that can operate software. And you see now with computer use that they can move a mouse and they can click a keyboard. So if you think about it, if you can move a mouse, type, add some intelligence, what's that? It's a remote worker. So cognitive labor, knowledge work, my background, law, banking, accounting, hedge fund manager, is going to zero. No doubt about it. And then physical labor will also go the same way eventually, because robots are becoming much better. So they've got more dexterity, they've got touch now. But if you imagine now you've got artificial intelligence like generative AI, it can see, it can hear, it can speak, it can understand our built environment. If you haven't done it yet, and you're listening to this podcast, open ChatGPT, the free version, take a picture of a room, ask it to describe it and the furnishings, and it will tell you what it thinks the carpet's made out of. So put that capability inside a robot that can navigate our built environment. As the cost goes down, that's going to change as well. So a lot of the robots you see now, the little quadruped dogs walking around, they're being steered like a remote control car. Right? But very soon it's coming where they will be autonomous. And one of these sort of Chinese ones, probably $16,000. So if you finance that, right, that's a couple £100 a month. So then compare that to human workers. So I always say that knowledge work, cognitive work is kind of going to be automated and physical. So what does that mean? That means that, a lot of labor, what we do all day, is going away. So people say, well, it's scary. This wave is coming in. There's no doubt about it. So there's no point running away from it. You have to embrace it and become the best person you can be using it, and become more productive, more profitable. And also, I think that a lot of the work that humans do is mundane and repetitive. They don't want to do it anyway. It's changed my life because a lot of stuff I don't like doing, I can now use this technology. So if you put all that together, then I'll stop talking. It's a fundamental change just to society.
It really is, isn't it? And I was going to ask about the whether that's a scary thought or indeed an opportunity. But the I guess the thing that I have in my mind is that the way you describe it, it almost means that we get cut out of the equation in every which methodology. And in fact, you could hypothesize a decade later, when those technologies have exponentially grown to be so good, we become the inefficiency in the model.
Yeah, the human in the loop now is seen as a good thing because it's QA, it's checking, it keeps the regulators happy, right? In 10 years' time, regulators won't want to talk to a human. They'll want to talk to an AI. They'll still want a human somewhere in the loop just to carry the can when things go wrong. But humans in the loop will become the weakest link. So you hear about AI and then AGI, so artificial general intelligence. So you saw at Davos, they'll talk about this quite a lot, where that's where this intelligence, this AI, can do everything a human can do, but probably better, cheaper, faster, safer. Okay, and then that then sort of translates into robotics eventually as well. So the point there is that human workers, especially knowledge workers, they have moods, they have holidays, they are a fixed cost. Whereas what you're seeing with artificial intelligence is probably going to be consumption based or output or outcome based. So it's a variable cost, which is what every business wants, isn't it? So things like deep sea, the big story that was missed on deep sea, I think, was all about how much it costs to train the model. I think what people missed is that on that point in the exponential curve, capability is rising, but the cost of inference is falling. It's like Moore's law. Sam Altman's got a great blog. Just go and read it if you listen to this, called Moore's Law for Everything. So Moore's law now applies to everything essentially. So as that cost falls, what happens is it's called Jevons paradox, where usage goes up. So people thought that when they invent steam engines, that's great. It's going to do all the work humans do. We'll have four of them in the world, whatever, a bit like the IBM computer, and then humans won't need to do much work anymore. No, because the use cases exploded, there were thousands, millions of them. Okay, and that's going to be the same with AI. Is that Jevons paradox means that you're going to see more and more of it be used. So the use cases explode, and then if you're in the US, cost of labor very expensive. AI competes with it. If you're in Europe, maybe it didn't. Now it does. If you're in, say, India or somewhere like that, or some other nations as well, where the cost of labor can be lower, it's still competitive to pay someone 300 quid a month rather than using AI all day. Well, now it isn't. So geopolitical structures in economics change because those competitive advantages due to the cost of, I'm talking about cognitive labor now, go away as well. And that's a real story behind things like DeepSeek.
I find that really insightful because there was a lot of scaremongering in the media about how some of the big tech companies in the US are effectively going to be in trouble. Well, it's actually the real reality is they're going to actually do better off and be better off as a consequence of DeepSeek.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely
a
right.
it's a total 360 on the thought process and narrative. And in fact, being an investor in companies like Nvidia, they had a bit of a tumble whilst the news and announcements came out. But actually, they could well be some of the real winners in this.
It's like
As
when
they
you look at
go through.
It's like when you look at Amazon in the early sort of noughties after the dot-com crash, right? It's share, but it was growing, and it crashed. You look at it, you think, oh my goodness, look at that. And when you zoom out 20 years later, it's here, the share price. And it's going to be a similar thing where, and also don't forget, just like the internet 1.0, all the interest, all the investment was in the infrastructure. So now everyone's talking about fabs where they make chips, and Nvidia who puts them into GPUs and processors and all these different processors that are being sort of invented actually, but they're trying to increase the output of them. Then you get into the LLMs, the AIs, the large language models, which is it's all very interesting. But actually, where the real value is going to be created eventually is on top of that. And that's what we saw in terms of, your Facebooks and your Salesforces. And we haven't quite got there yet because no one quite knows what that top layer is going to look like. And the LLMs themselves, because these things are intelligent, will do some of that. So you're seeing, startups being they're being killed and disrupted as fast as they're starting because the LLMs start doing these things, but they won't do everything. So that's where the real value is going to be created, but we're not quite there yet.
And I think this is where the arbitrage moment comes in. And I want to talk about preparedness because you talk about the need for people to jump, to play on the pitch, to kick the football around on this type of stuff. And so for people listening in here today, as we paint what could be a daunting or an exciting new world, what would you advise people in terms of being and coming up and getting prepared for this type of space?
So my advice is always, if you're, so there's two types of advice. One is personally, and one is your business, right? But often the personal experience is a precursor to your implementing this stuff in your business. So if you're not using a paid version of, and this is like $20, a month, right? So 16 quid a month. It's the best 200 quid a year you're ever going to spend, right? Just don't have a big night out or take someone for dinner. Just spend it on one of these applications. So whether it's Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, and then use that to augment yourself. Talk to it. I mean, I'm quite sad these days. I have ChatGPT Plus, so I've actually got Pro, which is a 200 $200 a month version. But I'd talk to it
Is
all
it
the
actually
time.
better? Is it actually much better than
Well, you
the?
got, you got things like Operator, Sora, and now, I mean, it is insane. If you haven't, you should do this, even for a month, right? The deep research capability. I mean, desktop secondary research is over. I mean, I did one the other day. I've got a mountain bike business, and we were looking at desktop research, and I did this research, and we're paying an agency to do some research. Now they've got kind of a panel of people which they can't replicate, but the desktop part of it, you write a decent prompt, and 20 minutes later you've got a 23-page, fully referenced research report. It's insane. So you get things like that. Anyway, go back to the point because I get distracted. I get excited. But the point is, if you're not using it yourself, talking to it, augmenting it, asking it things, feeding in your thoughts, experiences, and getting feedback as a sidekick or an infinitely patient mentor, even, you're missing a trick. And I always say, it's almost like these days, whether it's in business or personally, being pushed into a cage fight with this massive 7 foot tall world champion, martial artist slash kickboxer, jiu-jitsu expert to the death, and someone says to you, you know what, you can take Iron Man with you, and you're kind of like, nah, I don't know how it works. It's like, that's what it's like. And then, so once you start doing that, you're going to realize the power of it. And then you'll realize, if you're not doing this already, that in your business, the ability to automate processes, workflows, and also what we do is automate processes and workflows. Often it's actually sales growth as opposed to cost reduction. But what's interesting then is when you start to automate and learn the capabilities, you begin to see that you can do things that you never used to be able to do. So there's two aspects to it. So our view is very much that learn about it, implement it, test it, pilot it, prove value, and then don't just tweak the edges and automate things. Think about, this is the important point, how do you almost build your personal life or your business on top of this? Make it AI first. So now when you've got an organization and technology updates, so you're going from on-premise, my background, on-premise infrastructure to cloud infrastructure, there's a big project, a big learning process. It takes years. Most of these projects fail. Right? Then something else happens and off you go again. With AI, if you build on top of this intelligence, as that underlying intelligence improves over time, all ships rise. So your business capability, the capability of your AI agents and your team and the people working in the kind of human machine partnership improves with you get it's almost like a free upgrade. And that's what you need to be aiming at. But to get there first, if you're not sure about it, just experience it yourself and very quickly you'll appreciate the value of it.
I hear you on this, and there's potentially The downside is when we talk about all these things is there's a potential for people to be left behind. As you say, you're going into the cage fight without Iron Man, and that's a crappy idea to do, right? Um, I was actually reading a post by the CEO of Goldman Sachs just the other day, and he was talking about the IPO process and the due diligence around it, kind of saying, well, to create a pitch deck in yesterday's world would take a team of 10 and, a couple of weeks of in-depth analysis 24/7 to make happen. And today it's
I've done that. I used to be a banker. I've been there.
well, there you go. And then all of a sudden today you've got this, complete flip, right? Where it's, ChatGPT takes you what I think he was describing it being 85% of the way. And then what you're doing is tweaking at the edges. But then, you talk about cognitive jobs and workloads and things kind of coming to a very dramatic place. And then therefore that kind of means that it's not that the work stops, it's just that the number of people required to do that work, be at the tail end of it, will dramatically shift and be much, much less than it ever was. And so I think if you don't embrace this, then you probably be in trouble.
I think, yeah, I think a lot of people kind of dance around this. They say, oh, well, there'll be just different jobs, which is true to some extent. But let's take one example, right? I mean, I don't want to bash call centers, but I seem to do, is that humans answering phones, whether it be support or especially support, call centers, is going to the cloud. It's going to dematerialize and it's going to be in the cloud. We have voice agents implement AI where I always thought it was going to be inbound. So dealing with calls. Now it can take a call. It's got perfect kind of recall of all the systems, the CRM, what product they've had, what the previous conversations were about. Great voices. You can't tell the difference between a human and AI. And I thought it was going to be inbound. And actually, what's astounded me is the potential of outbound. So outbound phone calls, reactivating customers, a great use case, or doing research, another great case. Getting rid of forms, for example, and surveys. You can now just talk to people, and you talk, especially me, hundreds of words a minute, thousands even. Whereas you type, if you're a good typist, a couple of hundred, 150. I'm probably at 50, 60. So you're capturing a huge amount of information. So I was amazed that it was going to be sort of voice. So call centers are going to go away. You're only going to have people on the phone if it's complicated, it's a very high value sale maybe, or there's a really upset customer who wants it escalated to a human. And I think that eventually you'll see that where the value is human experiences. But the
Yes.
point is, there's 1 million people in the UK working call centers. So let's say 10% are needed for those edge cases. That's 900,000 people looking for a job. That's just one. You can look at computer use now, where it can use a mouse and a keyboard. So remote knowledge work essentially goes away. So there is going to be an issue about what we all do all day, and we're going to have to face up to that. But that issue isn't going to stop the fact that the economic incentive to deploy this technology, and there are billions of pounds going into improving it, going back to the kind of conversation about Javon's paradox and deep sea, means that as the capability improves and the cost goes down, the use cases just explode. So the pressure to implement this technology and the pressure on the competition with human cognitive work, and then don't forget physical work, is going to be immense.
Yeah, it is an interesting space that we're into. And of course the economic implications of 90% of that call center population then looking for jobs elsewhere, and therefore all the
Education,
under huh?
reskilling,
Yeah.
education, reskilling, get into that conversation then.
Well, exactly, don't you just? And by the way, as an educator, what are you reskilling people in this moment in time? Is a slightly undefined moment. I mean, yes, there's the thought about upskilling them to be a part of the ecosystem that is coming on in the next wave. I get that. But beyond that point, there still is a big question mark as to what you reskill.
So my son, he was learning to code. He did a bit of JavaScript, a bit of Python. Did it for a year. Did a few things, and then one day I said to him, "You're running out of course credits. You need some more." And he's like, I'm not sure it's worth it anymore because ChatGPT does it." And I was like, "Oh, don't be silly." And I hear a lot of people saying this about coding because let's face it, coding's going away. You will just talk to technology and it will just write code, show you what it's done, and you'll think, "I don't like that. Do this, do that, change that." It'll tweak it, and you'll say, "Oh, that works," and off it goes in real time. So he was sort of saying, "Oh, it's not worth it." And I said, and I was saying what those people, I still hear people saying, "Don't be the bricklayer, be the architect." And now, if you came back to me and said, "Oh, I want to pick up my coding course again," I'd say it's a complete waste of time.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you
And
what,
that's
coding,
a year that's changed.
isn't it just? And by the way, I mean, I've done quite a lot of work with a whole host of ed tech coding schools, and again, they're going through a hell of a lot of difficulty as a consequence of this.
Well, he
Uh,
was on. Is it Baiju, one of
of
the
course, yeah,
yeah, he was one of the big ones, right? And
yeah,
they
yeah,
were
of
like,
course.
oh, they're quite hard to sell, aren't they? And they must be struggling now because and he's like, he was probably 15, 14, 15 then, and even then he's saying, what's the point?
I'm telling you, it's interesting, and I mean, the new coding language is actually English because you're just going to prompt something and it's going to churn it out, and then you're going to refine it as a consequence in natural speaking language. It is quite amazing how these industries are going to get reinvented. I'm coming at it from a marketing lens for one perspective, or from one second. What I find interesting, and even in today's world, now talk about the exponential curve. Let's just here and now, right today, look at someone's phone in the inbox, and every 5 minutes, you've either got a spam phone call, a spam email, a spam text message, a spam WhatsApp, whatever that might be. And what's basically happening is we're having an overload of cognizance. Right? It's just literally all the stuff is hitting us a million times an hour, a million times a day, and there's no cut through anymore. So email communications are, are not as effective as they used to be. Text communications aren't certainly more. Everyone is just blocking it out like an ad blocker in your mind. Um, and therefore, as an industry, right, we thought AI is one of the greatest things to be able to then, get messages out there more efficiently. What actually is happening is effectiveness across marketing, regardless of how you look at it, is going down because of this type of stuff.
Well, here's another one that people don't seem to grasp. The internet is going away. So people, when I say it, people say, what are you talking about? He said, you're getting very excitable now. And I'm like, well, think about it. What is the internet? You go online, there's this cyberspace of all these little places in HTML or whatever they're written in. You have to go and visit. And then that was a pain. So then they tried to put them into indexes like Yahoo. That was a pain. Then they invented Google. Wow. Indexes everything. So now when you search, it goes and finds what you're looking for. Thank you. But it's still searching around the internet for you. And now when you do a search in one of these search engines, you need a search engine to go through the search results, and most of it is an advert. So now it's just you're still getting garbage back in terms of searching what you're looking for. So imagine this. So within a couple of years, I think 3 years, we're going to start to have our own personal AI agents. It will know who you are, what you do, what you like, what you don't like, what your heart rate is, what your favorite food is, the whole context of your life. Shops will have agents understand their products, their customers, and all the competition in real time. So you almost get back to economics, perfect information, perfect markets, because they're all looking at each other. So I say, I need a Barbie on Saturday. I've got the family coming round. So it'll be a nice day. I haven't got one. I'll pay 200 quid for a new one. I'm making it up. 150 for a second hand one if it's in good condition. I, I say that to my phone or whatever device I'm using, probably my glasses actually. It goes off, and when I say go off, I mean it more or less instantaneously. Talks to 6 different barbecue sellers, finds the right deal, comes back and says, "Look, you can get a new one here or this one. I'd recommend this one." I go, "Oh, brilliant!" It shows me a picture of it in my AR glasses. I go, "Yeah, it looks fine, brilliant." And it goes and pays for it and does the deal for me. There's no internet. It's just my agents talking to retail agents and doing deals. The internet will become this place where you kind of go and look around for posterity because it was, oh, that's what people used to do. Hopefully, my grandchildren will think the internet, the whole concept of what we spend all our days searching around, will be quaint.
Isn't it amazing?
So what does that mean for marketing? What does that mean for SEO?
I mean, I think the revolution on SEO is already starting to take shape for the reasons you described about the advertising lens. But let's dig into that a little bit. We'll
Because
have a
sorry,
whole host.
just on SEO, SEO works because these search engines aren't particularly intelligent. They just look at loads of words. Oh, there's an article there where they mentioned barbecue 50 times. Brilliant. They must be experts. So it indexes it. AI is intelligent. It will look at the context and the article and your business and your pricing and your competition, and it will only come back if it thinks it's actually worth showing you that. It's a whole different ballgame.
Completely true. And therefore, right, the dot 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 into how should marketers view this world? How should marketers, one, embrace, and two, be prepared for the changing nature of this?
So I think so. A lot of what we do implement AI is sales and marketing. Actually, this is something that I think which I like. I prefer. It's not just about how do I cut costs, which you can do, but it's becoming more effective. So I think we're actually launching an AI agent platform, and what that really creates. Think about it. So you can have WhatsApp, SMS, voice calls, email, all these communications come in. It's got perfect recall across all of that and memory, which is really powerful in itself. So now you've got a CRM, some SaaS solution you've been using. And what is it? It's a database for UI, and it's got, first name, last name, email address, a bit about the product, what you sent them last time, did they open it or not, blah, blah, quite basic. A flat, what I call 2D database. So now you've got all this conversational information, all this context, right, that you've captured, that you've enriched, layered on top of this information. Every conversation, their sentiment, what their hobbies are, where they are, you've captured it all. So now what you can do is say, well, actually, I now want to send Richie or Piers an email, a marketing email, but now it's different. So now, yes, you need their name. Yes, you need their email address, or maybe not. Maybe it's a voice call, actually. But now I've got all this rich information in a vectorized database. It's like a 3D database. So a 3D database, semantic search is things like if you search for hot dog in its original database, it's going to find hot dog or hot hyphen dog or hot dog together, or it just comes back with zero. In a vectorized database, it'll find hot dog. It'll also find pizza, burrito, burger, because they're close together in that 3D space. So imagine that now. It can then write this email and it can write the email for you, but super or hyper personalize it in real time. And that's where you've got to go. You've also got to start thinking about large language model optimization. So what is it that means that in my example of looking for that Barbie, that means that your business is going to come up in that search by the AI agent talking to other AI agents? That's the future, actually. And that's a very different paradigm because these things are intelligent. And actually, let's face it, they're going to become more intelligent than us. So you can't pull the wool over its eyes by writing an article that mentions barbecue 62 times.
You're absolutely spot on. Another angle of the world of marketing that has grown up over the last decade is the world of influencer and influencer marketing, and the way that so a lot of people have benefited on the back of building out things like personal
I mean,
brand.
I do that, quite a
There
lot
we
of that.
go. Right. And so I'd love to get your take on this because I was watching a podcast yesterday and they were talking about how, on the one hand, they're just coming up with their own digital twin. And actually, in years to come, you and I will probably have a conversation with our digital twins. You wouldn't even have to be here because you'd programmed it so well. But then, therefore, I just wonder to what extent you still envisage the need for having, influencer sort of type of an industry um, in this new world, and whether there's a trust factor that comes along with it, and therefore, you would envisage it sticking around versus actually, we wouldn't need to have it. It's all synthetic.
It's a tricky one, that, because I think the digital twin thing will work to some extent because it'll be indistinguishable from you or I. You won't know. But I actually think that this is going to go full circle. So I think that people will pay more for human experiences. They will pay more to go and see a gig. They will pay more to go to an event. They will pay more to talk to an actual person or meet an actual person before they buy something. Obviously that's not particularly scalable, but that's where it's going to go. So I think that I see it as like a pyramid of value, and this pyramid of sort of human labor or human value, let's call it, has been filled up by the industrial revolution. So it was like steam engines, then it was electrification and consumerization, then it was the internet and web 1, 2, 3. But while it was being filled up with technology, the triangle got bigger. So the space for humans and where we played was getting bigger, actually. So even though the bottom was filling up, now it's different. That triangle's not getting bigger; it's probably getting smaller, actually, because it's got population decline. People are getting older, so the triangle's staying the same, but it's filling up. So we have to. migrate to the top somehow and add more value. And how do you do that? Now, the space won't be big enough for everyone to add value. But those that have a brand or they have a particular skill, I think there's a fantastic opportunity for them to make hay while the sun shines, because I think that's going to go full circle. I think the human experience will be the key to creating a lot of value. Everything else can be completely automated.
I absolutely hear you on that. In fact, I think doubling down on community, because humans ultimately want to be around and have a need to be around others, and in that way together. And
Now,
therefore, as you say,
that doesn't scale particularly well. So you've got to think about how that's going to work. But again, it's like robots, right? People think, oh, robots, they don't look great. They're not very good at doing things. They keep dropping stuff. Oh yeah. I say to people, can you do a backflip? These things are. You talk about AGI, where there's an artificial intelligence that can do everything that we can or better. Okay, and it starts to recursively learn, right? And very quickly you end up with artificial super intelligence, which is it's a new species. We don't understand how it thinks or communicates or why it's invented this thing, and that's going to change our lives. It's going to change healthcare. You've got these exponentials that kind of merge together. So you've got healthcare, you've got artificial intelligence, lots of things come together, material science. So you're going to see these things come together, and they'll be inventing these amazing robots that, apart from the laws of friction, we won't be able to see the speed at which they move. So they'll be inventing things that we just don't understand. They will do things in ways that we never even dreamt of. You're seeing that already. So the best example, I think, is it Sir Demis Hassabis, who's now a Nobel Prize winner. I mean, fair play to him. He was a founder of Google, what's now Google DeepMind, and they created Alpha Zero, I think it was, which is a two-player game AI. So you don't teach how to play chess. It just it knows the rules and starts playing itself. So I think within 4 hours, it went from not knowing how to play chess to being the best chess playing AI computer, whatever you want to call it, in the world by a country mile. So imagine that across everything. And then imagine that continuing. So with an AI, I have rooms of people and I say, think about humans and you've got 4 degrees and PhDs, you got to do undergrad, masters, doctorate, keep going, and then you've then got to write a thesis or a book and pass on to the next generation. With AIs, the second you come up with an idea, every other AI understands it and starts building on it. So that's where it gets exponential change. And we can't understand that. Is that my daughter's lifetime, I honestly believe, they're kind of the early teens now, humans will not get insured to drive cars in conurbations. You will not get insurance or be allowed for a human to work on a building site. Cars will be properly autonomous, with robots basically. There will be, who said that as well, one of the AI leaders. There'll be more, I think it was actually Elon Musk, that's a whole different podcast. But he was saying there'll be more robots in our built environment than cars.
I hear you, and the other thing that you just described about those robots doing things for each other, in effect. It's what's the role of business? In a world where you talk about a SaaS company where an AI can replicate an identical and then beat the previous SaaS company, you're getting to a world of near perfect information, and therefore, once you achieve that, there's no arbitrage. And if there's no arbitrage, where do you make a difference?
Yeah, exactly right.
It's kind of a really interesting but yet sort of daunting
And
sort of
that's
thought.
where, when you've got this almost like these algorithmic hedge fund traders, where they're looking for minuscule arbitrage opportunities to make a dime, literally, but it builds up because of the scale of it. And that's what commerce will be like. And that's why it may be that this human experience, this human contact, that thing that we crave but machines can't deliver, may be the added value, may be the differentiator.
I think so. I think so. The other thing that's worthwhile of note is the role that crypto plays in all of this ecosystem, because I think that there are a few areas where actually now, I mean, crypto probably plays a great deal in the landscape of actually, an AI interacting with the crypto account, as an example. And where do we think that's going to go? And I wonder if you have a perspective on how the crypto markets intersect with the world of AI.
So I was quite into crypto for quite a while, especially like DeFi, and then most of them disappeared. Um, but I kind of got my timing right on it. But I mean, crypto generally, I think the big shame of crypto is that most people have forgotten about the use case of blockchain. And it's all about, can I pump and dump a coin and make money, which is fine. But the technology has sort of been lost in many ways. And I think the issue with crypto is, and it's another thing people don't quite gather, is that you have all these exponentials, don't you, merging together? And there's one exponential which is called quantum computing. So quantum computing, in most encryptions, what, 120, 128-bit, is it? Which is, can't be broken by most technology, unless you're the NSA maybe. But quantum computing can break that in a heartbeat. So our understanding of cryptography gets broken overnight. And I bet Google's quantum computer can do this already. So there's a clue in the name of crypto, which is cryptography. So the second that you turn one of these on, point at a blockchain, and it stops being encrypted, it becomes just an Excel spreadsheet that everyone can read. That's the end of crypto.
Wow. I
I
mean,
know.
it's
So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you've got your keys hammered into titanium sheets in a safety deposit box. It's not going to help you.
right. I don't know what we're predicting here, by the way,
No, but I mean, it's one of those things that it wasn't my thought. Let's be honest with you. I saw it somewhere and I thought, oh goodness me. So then you get into like, can you have quantum cryptography, which is then just a constant arms race?
It is, isn't it? It isn't it? It's quite incredible. I want to turn the conversation for the remaining time we have left here, Piers, because clearly, you talked about the role of personal brand, and I think, from my perspective anyway, where you went mainstream was on being a dragon on Dragon's Den, and it'd be remiss not to touch on that, as being perhaps the liftoff moment, maybe in your mainstream personal branding debut, should we say? So what was it like? I mean, how did it happen? What happened? And how is it like being in that hot seat? I mean, it's the envy of most of the world to be in that hot seat. We'd
It's
love
got
to get
people
the
that make
insight.
me laugh. They always say, "Oh yeah, I was asked to be a dragon, but I turned it down." I'm like, what are you talking about? It makes me laugh. And then if you did, why would you have done that? Because it's what an experience. So I was actually a secret millionaire on Channel 4 in 2011. So I spent time, not all my time, but they only actually showed in the show my time with the young offenders. And just on that very quickly, so I met a young lad in there. He was in there quite serious offences. He got 11 years at 19. He served quite a few of them, and I sort of came out, mentored him a little bit, didn't mollycoddle him. And he was very, very intelligent. I said, "What the hell are you doing in here?" He was at college. He wasn't challenged. Tried to make a bit of money, and then got caught. And anyway, anyway, 10 years later, he's now a senior cloud architect, earning seven figures. You count the noughts, but a lot of money basically, and he's got a family. And the point there is just slight off piece moment is that if you've got this social capital like you and I have, or people listening to podcasts have, and you sprinkle it on people early on, 5-10 years down range, you can completely change their lives. Even if you didn't think it made a massive difference on the day or in the moment you actually shared it. So that's one thing. So through that, the researchers asked to be a dragon on Dragon's Den. And I wasn't that sure at the time. I was just busy. And I wasn't sure about being a celebrity. I'd had a taste of it. And Dragon's Den was a whole different level. But anyway, so I was actually away with Sir Richard Branson on his private game reserve, Ulu Saba, in South Africa, in the Kruger National Park, as you do. I donated to his charity, not because he particularly wanted to invite me. But anyway, so we were all there. Fantastic experience in itself. And I was thinking, who do I talk to about TV, media, business, combining it all? And obviously, it was Sir Richard. We had this whole conversation, a whole story I could tell you about this, but we had this chat, and he said that you should do it. You'd be good at it. People like you aren't on TV. They are more now, but then they were not so much, especially in business. And I said, okay. And I was walking away, and he got me to ring the producer back and tell them there and then that I'm in.
Ah,
And that's where I ended up on Dragon's Den. So the experience was just, you turn up, you don't know anything, and you say, hello, Peter, hello, Deborah, and off you go. It's bonkers. So I think I did the best deal ever on Dragon's Den. Um, I don't know all the deals now because I haven't seen it for quite a long time. But I invested in a company that was a children's publisher. So you use technology to create personalized children's books. And I've got 100 grand for sort of 5%. But you get EAS, you got some money back off the sort of the government for your investment. Call it 100 grand for 5%. And they went through some difficult times, but they got there in the end, and it was sold. The number's not public, which is why it's not sort of well known. But I got about a 45x. So I think in terms of Dragon's Den, where and I was the first to do tech really. Someone's invested in founders. They've they've done a deal, built the business, and exited it for cash. I don't see many other deals like that. So for me, it was a great experience, but it's a double two sides to that coin. Everyone thinks they know you. Well, they don't. They know a caricature of you, which was created by some editors at the BBC, because often you might say that Piers didn't invest because he wasn't sure about the branding. I didn't invest because it was a subsidiary of a Canadian franchise. So why the hell would I? But that's boring. That's not good. That's not televisual. But they find the story and weave it out. So it's like you kind of shake hands on a deal, and then you go off and do an angel investment. It's like that film Sliding Doors. That's one road in the multiverse. Then the other one, they're gonna make a TV show. They're two quite different things. But great experience. What amazes me is that it was quite a long time ago. People still come up to me. I'm out with my kids and I'll be in Boots and my daughters, and quite young shop assistant will go, oh my God, it's you. And I think, well, how the hell will she know? But I forget that they keep replaying them constantly on these TV channels. Because I don't watch linear TV at all, so I just don't see it. And during COVID, obviously, they couldn't film it, so they replayed them all again. So it's quite interesting, and it opens doors, allows you to do things I probably wouldn't have done. And I ended up on the board of the government bank. I get to do sort of philanthropic things, support people, and the profile helps. Being an influencer. So I really do enjoy that. But sometimes where you just want to be mind your own business, and you can't even in the most random place in the world, people go, they
That's
point.
you.
Oh, the best thing is people look at me and they say, I mean, people look at me and they know my face, but they don't quite know where from that. Do you work in Barclays in Camden? I've been in nightclubs where someone's buying me drinks all night. I'm like, look, I'm okay. And he's like, oh, I want to get you and your mate. And he's giving the big one, mate. At the end of the night, I go, look, I really got to go. And he's like, it's been great to meet you. I'm a big fan. You're an amazing rugby player. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, time to go. So that's quite funny. But overall, it's been a positive.
Do you feel like you get pitched all the time?
Yeah. Yeah, not so much pitch, I suppose, but people want advice. So I made a course. It's on Udemy actually, where I just got frustrated with people asking the same questions all the time. So I tried to condense all of my know-how into a course. It's about 10.5 hours, 76 lessons. And it's on Udemy. It's not going to cost much money on Udemy, but it's worth a look at. And if you're starting a business or building a new business, it's kind of all in there.
Hey, there you go. Pierce, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you here today. It's been both perhaps daunting, exciting about the world
It's
is going to shape
exciting.
into. I
It's
think so
exciting.
too.
The
I think so too.
change is a good thing, but we are going to have to, the raw way, societally, we have to start thinking about how we structure it going forward.
Indeed. And on that note, let's stop. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.